They kicked me out at 16 now. After 12 years, they want back in my life too bad. It's too late when I was 10 years old. My parents adopted their best friend's daughter because he had asked them to. He had said that he trusted no one more than them to give her a proper family. His daughter was around 2 years old then and he wasn't able to take care of her. He was on the brink of bankruptcy. My parents had jumped at the opportunity to adopt her. They loved her. Whenever we went over to their place, they smothered her with gifts. I was 10 at the time and didn't understand their infatuation with her. As we grew up, it only got worse. They compared the two of us in every single thing, even though we had an 8-year difference. From tests to sports to behavior, she was their golden child. At times, I would listen to them talk about how she completed their picture-perfect family. It was horrible. I had to do all the housework. They wouldn't let me go out or have friends over. At the dinner table, they would tell me not to eat because I was putting on weight, which was not true. I was losing weight. Every weekend, they would go out and I was left alone. I would cry not knowing why they behaved like that toward me. I started fighting back when I was around 15. I called them out on their behavior and the fact that they didn't do their housework. They would get so angry. When I was 16, they kicked me out. In my anger, I took off to my best friend's house. Her parents were sweethearts and let me stay over. The next day, they went to my parents' house with me and tried to mediate, but they refused to let me in and told them to take me with them if they wanted. They had disowned me. I burst out crying there. My best friend's mother tried to comfort me while my parents shut the door in our faces. I was so embarrassed that day. I promised myself that I would never look back. I would make something of myself and stand on my own 2 feet. My best friend's mother let me stay over for a few days, but that obviously couldn't last forever. They already had 3 children. I called a few relatives and asked if I could stay with them, and they made up different excuses. My best friend's aware of this and didn't put any pressure on me. Instead, they took me in as their child. I had a part-time job, so I tried to pay them what little I could, but they tapped me on the head and said, "How dare you try to pay us?" My best friend was a big support for me back then. She would drag me out of our room and take me out. We bunked together. I informed my school about what happened and they offered me a scholarship, which I was very grateful for. I didn't want to be a burden on the people who had taken me in. They didn't treat me any differently. Even though they had 3 children, they welcomed me with open arms. I knew I had to get into college by myself, so I studied day and night to maintain my grades. They would be concerned about me not getting out much, but I told them that I was fine. I did get into college on my own. All that work paid off. My best friend got into the same one as me and immediately accepted. My uncle and aunt, best friend's parents, had taken care of me for years. I was lucky to have them, and I promised that I would treat them as my parents for the rest of my life. Everybody had gotten emotional that day. I told them that as they were leaving us at our dorms, time passed and I graduated college and then went on to work. I was doing well and so was my best friend. We roomed together while we worked, and as it would be more comfortable. We were like sisters. A few years later, we were both doing pretty well. We had gotten promoted a couple of times in our respective fields and had achieved some of our financial goals. We kept learning different ways to improve ourselves and implemented them. I helped out with my aunt and uncle's other children's education. I tried to send them money too, but they wouldn't take it. So instead, I kept sending them different packages that they would like. It's the least I could do to show my appreciation. When I was around 28 years old, I got engaged to my boyfriend of 3 years. He was an entrepreneur and 5 years older than me. I had developed a habit of calling my aunt and uncle mom and dad by now. They had become my family. They were thrilled when my boyfriend proposed. There were about 3 months left for the wedding. One day, my aunt called me up and told me that she had something to tell me. She was weary. I asked her what she was worried about. She told me that someone had shown up at their house. I asked her who, and she said, my parents. I was surprised. I said, "Oh, okay." She said that they were asking about me. She continued by saying they were asking for a way to contact me again. She told them that she would ask me first and then see how it goes. I thought about it for a moment and wondered why they had shown up at my aunt and uncle's house after 12 years. I doubted their intentions. I had gone through a lot because of them. I went to therapy and worked past all of that. This seemed like a test. I wasn't willing to let them in. I had parents, aunt and uncle, that cared about me, siblings that rooted for me, and a fiancé who loved me. I had accomplished so many things and I was happy. I didn't need their approval anymore. I didn't crave their love or attention. I told my aunt that I didn't want to contact them. The next day, she called me and told me that they were demanding to get in contact with me, saying I was their daughter and they had all the right to contact me. I told her to tell them that I stopped being their daughter a long time ago. I also told my aunt to tell them that if they needed a daughter, they could go to their adopted child. She would have no problem showing up at their house. She relayed the message. The next day, she called me up again, telling me that my parents had broken down on the phone, telling her that their adopted child had gone off the rails. They told her that she was 20 years old and still hadn't moved out. She left her education mid-semester. She had dated all the wrong people. She also indulged in alcohol, and now they were trying to put her in rehab for drugs. But she ran away and came back to them again. My aunt was a very soft-hearted person, and I could tell she was sad. I told her that it was none of our problems and that we didn't need to take the issues they created for themselves upon us. I told her that they had chosen her, adopted daughter, over me, and she, aunt had chosen me to be her family without treating any other child any differently from me. I was going to get married in 3 months. I wasn't going to leave everything midway or take on any more unnecessary stress for them. I told her to relay one last message and then not contact them again. I sent her a voice recording that she could send them. I said, "You stopped being my parents the moment your adopted daughter stepped into the house. You stopped treating me as your child when I was 10 years old. Even before that, you were not happy with me. You treated me like shit and didn't let me go out. You made me do all the housework while you took your other daughter out every week. You kicked me out when I was 16. You didn't care about me then, and you don't care about me now. I remember you talking about having a picture-perfect family. Your adopted daughter seemed to fit that picture back then. She doesn't seem to meet your standards now. Is that why you want to contact me? Too bad, too late. You shut the door in my face. Remember? I want a happy family, and I have that with my actual parents. You know, the ones that took me in when you kicked me out, who didn't expect anything back from me and just wanted me to be happy. I have that happy family now, and you don't seem to fit into that family of mine because that requires kindness, love, and empathy, which you lack. So stop calling them because I don't want to talk to you or meet you. I hope everything goes well with your other daughter. Please don't try to contact any of us again." They got the message. I had dealt with them as kindly as I could, which was not needed for how they treated me. My aunt and uncle were proud of how I responded. They had heard the voice text. They didn't get a response from them. 2 days later, they showed up at my aunt and uncle's door begging them to give them my number. Aunt politely told them not to show up again. Was I in a hole? Should I have gone to meet them? 2 months later, they still show up sometimes at my aunt and uncle's place. One of my younger siblings slipped up and told them I was getting married, and I told them to go away. Aunt said they stood there shocked and then were happy, asking if it was true and where it was happening. She told them that they weren't going to be invited and to go away. Right now, I'm very busy with wedding preparations, and this will probably be my last update. To OP is such a boss bitch. She stood her ground. I would have wanted to scream and yell in their faces. I'm on OP's side. She has everything together now. Also, she's going to get married in a month. She doesn't need to deal with their drama. Den, tell the parents no backsies. You adopted her, you get her. I, a teen female, was gifted 2 acres of land from my parents that they, female 42 and male 52, no longer could take care of. The land is in a town over from the one we live in, though both the towns are pretty small, so they're only about 10 minutes away from each other. The land was left to my father after his mother passed, and for a while he kept the upkeep on it, but after having been sick for a few weeks, it was getting pretty overgrown, and he no longer wanted to care for it. I proposed that I would take care of it as long as they put it partially in my name and allowed me to build my tiny home there. I had been planning to build this tiny home for a while now, so having this land finally gave me a place to do it. It already had a well and plumbing from a previous house. My father agreed. Flash forward to now. My home is complete and fully functional. There is somebody coming to inspect it this week. Here's where my problem is. Over the course of my building, my mother has been letting herself in. Now, every time she'd come in, she would mess something up. She would say she was helping and that she could fix something or that she had an easier way. I had to redo what flooring I'd put in as she tried to continue it herself and made it offset where it was supposed to be. I had to repaint a wall because she messed with it before it was still dry and other things along those lines. Until now, I just had a simple lock on the door, but with everything finally being done and ready for the inspector, I couldn't have anybody messing anything up. I put a chain and padlock on the door to my house. Today, my mother called me asking why I locked her out of our house. I was baffled and told her that it was my house and that I couldn't have anything being messed up. She got upset and said it's on my land, so it's my house just as much as it is yours. How dare you say I messed it up? I tried to remind her that I didn't say she messed anything up, just that I couldn't have anything wrong. I reminded her that my name is on the title for the land and the agreement to me taking care of the land was that I'd get to build. She said once again that it's her house because it's her land, and I got upset and told her it's my house, I can lock you out if I wish. My name is on the title for the land. We had an agreement and I paid for everything for the house all for myself. It's my house. She hung up the phone, and now both her and my father are texting me telling me I was rude to my mother and that it's their house too because they let me use the land. My dad's told me to apologize and let my mom come over to see it, but I just can't risk anything being ruined. Dana, sounds like the land had some strings attached to it. Look into property laws, do your homework, and most importantly, do not take any more help from them in any way. Otherwise, you run the risk of them laying claim to anything that is yours. Best of luck. Nana, your mom and dad did not keep to your agreement and you are not rude. From your description, you did not put her down, accuse her of anything, or say anything other than facts and assert that it is your house. Not rude. Once the inspection is complete, make sure you sort out the rules with your parents in writing, and so sorry if they continue to try to invade your new tiny home. It is very cool that you built it, by the way. 10. Tell your mom she can come for a tour after the inspection. You do, however, need to address this ownership thing, particularly if you have siblings. It sounds like your name is on the deed to the land. Are both of your parents on the deed or just your dad? You need to clear up what they have imagined the ownership of the house to be. Tip: start this conversation with your dad when your mom's not around. Sounds like she's the one who thinks you're just an extension of her. I can't stand my sister-in-law. Everything about her grates on my nerves, and her very presence can instantly darken my mood. For the sake of family peace, I've kept all of this bottled up. I try to keep contact with her to a minimum, but if we have to be in the same room together, I'm always civil and polite. No one knows my true feelings towards her. My dislike of sister-in-law stems from her belief that she knows everything. No matter the topic of discussion, she'll have an opinion. Most of her knowledge are flat out wrong, and the ones that are correct, she only has surface-level knowledge but will hold herself out to be an expert. A perfect example and the reason why I'm here is the following situation. I would like to point out she and my brother rents and have never owned any properties. She started to give contradictory advice that made no sense. Like, I told my niece she should never buy a house in the flood zone because flood insurance is expensive and mandatory with a mortgage. Sister-in-law started to say that niece won't have to pay flood insurance if she doesn't report to the bank that the house is in the flood zone because several of her friends got away with that. I looked at her like she just farted an arm out of her ear. I told her that's not how banks work, but she argued she knows people who did that. Another example is I told my niece that she should wait and work on increasing her FICO score while lowering her debt-to-income ratio in order to get the best possible rate. Sister-in-law asked what a FICO score is, and after I explained it's the average credit score of the 3 main credit agencies. Sister-in-law told my niece she should just turn in the highest score and not the average. Once again, I told her that's not how banks work. After several terrible pieces of advice, I lost my temper and told her to mind her own business and keep her incorrect opinions to herself. This made her cry and started an argument between me and my brother. Our parents want me to apologize, but I think it's time someone tells her she doesn't know everything. Dinta, sometimes it's not what you say, but how you say it. You could have gotten your point across without losing your temper. Families are complex, and everyone has a know-it-all opinionated relative that's dumber than a box of rocks. Your family is no exception. Dana, I'm constantly amazed at how people constantly rally around morons and demand that everyone tiptoe around people who are horrible to be in social situations with. The only reason sister-in-law is like this now is because no one cared enough to take the time to explain to her that her behavior makes everyone hate to be around her. She needed to learn this more than anything else. Her parents failed her miserably, and she'll be a social outcast for the rest of her life unless people like OP put her in her place. Sister-in-law is not a third-grade child who doesn't get the math lesson, so everyone has to boost her spirits so she can still try. She didn't get an answer wrong on a test. She failed to learn the basics of social interaction. You did her a favor that apparently no one else ever has. It's as if she keeps putting her hand in a flame and she's been taught to blame the candle. You're doing right by your niece on giving her valuable information about buying her first home. Your sister-in-law is spreading false information that will have negative results if your niece were to follow even one of her odd and possibly illegal recommendations. You don't control which FICO your lender pulls. They decide that on their own. FICO 10T is going to be starting to be pulled soon for Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae lenders, so it's best they get and keep their DTI as low as possible, as well as report all on-time rental payments to the credit bureaus if their landlord does not already do so. Flood insurance is going to be even more unaffordable in the near future because of Ian and Nicole. Best to stay away from the immediate coastline since even if you're not in a designated flood zone, you still may wind up with some flood damage from storm surges. I had a family member who was a realtor when my husband and I bought, and we were given the same advice you gave your niece.